Okay, so we're going to start talking about dividing polynomials in section 4. We're going to talk about long division first. Long division is just like regular division. So we want to say x times what gives you x squared, and that would be x. So x, then we're going to multiply back. X times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. You always subtract when you're doing long division. If you want, you could distribute this negative sign and add negatives. That works too. Don't forget, though, to distribute. This negative sign goes to both these terms. So x squared minus x squared is 0. They cancel out. 3x minus negative 3x. This minus minus becomes a positive and gives us a 6x. Now we drop down the next term. Repeat. X times what gives you 6x? That would be positive 6. Multiply back. 6x times x is 6x. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. We're always subtracting. 6x minus 6x is 0. Negative 12 minus negative 18 minus minus becomes a positive again, and that gives you a 6. This is your remainder. The way we write our answer is our new polynomial, x plus 6, plus your remainder over your divisor, what you divided by. This is our answer. When you divide, the purpose of dividing is we get 1 degree lower. So if you start with a quadratic, like we did here, you're going to end up with a linear polynomial. We'll always have 1 degree lower polynomial than when we started. So why is this helpful? If we say, is x plus 5 a factor of x cubed plus 7x squared minus 38x minus 240, we could try to factor that out and see if x plus 5 is indeed a factor. You could also divide. If your remainder is 0, then yes, it's a factor. If your remainder is not 0, any other number, then no, it's not a factor. So we can do division and tell it's a factor by the remainder. So x times what gives you x cubed? That would be x squared. Multiply it back. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times 5 is 5x squared. We're subtracting. X cubed minus x cubed cancels out, is 0. 7x squared minus 5x squared becomes a 2x squared. Don't forget to subtract both your terms here. Then we can drop down the negative 38. Repeat the next step. X times what gives you 2x squared? That would be a positive 2x. Multiply it back. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 5 is 10x. And this 38 should have an x. We subtract. 2x squared minus 2x squared is 0. Cancels out. Negative 38x minus 10x gives you a negative 48x. And then we can drop down our next term, negative 240. Repeat the steps again. X times what is negative 48x? Negative 48. Multiply back. Negative 48 times x is negative 48x. Negative 48 times 5 is negative 240. We're always subtracting. Negative 48x minus negative 48x is 0 because minus minus makes a plus. Negative 240 minus negative 240 is also 0 because minus minus makes a plus. So the answer, is it a factor? Yes, it is a factor because our remainder is 0. When you're dividing, if you're ever missing a place, all your places have to be filled in from highest exponent down to 0. So when I am dividing x minus 4 into x cubed minus 13x minus 12, my highest degree is 3. So I should have a place for my third degree, second degree, first degree, and constant. But I'm missing my second degree place. That's why we have a filler. You always put 0 in to fill that spot. You need to have a placeholder. And then you can go ahead and divide. X times what gives you x cubed? And that would be x squared. Multiply back. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times negative 4 x squared. We're always subtracting. X cubed minus x cubed cancels out is 0. 0 minus negative 4 minus makes a plus, and that's a positive 4 x squared. Drop down your next term and repeat. X times what gives you 4x squared? That would be a positive 4x. Multiply back. 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times negative 4 is negative 16x. Then we're going to subtract. These will cancel out. Negative 13 minus negative 16 gives you a positive 3x. Drop down your next term and repeat. X times what is 3x? That's a 3. Multiply back. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. We're always subtracting, and we'll end up with 0. So our answer is just x squared plus 4x plus 3, because we have a remainder of 0. So you always need to fill in your places. Be very careful about that. If we look at the next example, I'm going to say x minus 2 divided by, start with your biggest, x cubed. I don't have a square, so that gets a 0, 0x squared. I don't have a single, so that gets another 0, 0x. And I do have a constant, and that's 5. Now I can go ahead and divide. X times what gives you x cubed? That's an x squared. Multiply back. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times negative 2 is negative 2x squared. We're always subtracting with long division, and we're going to be left with a positive 2x squared. Drop down your next term, 0x. X times what gives you 2x squared? That would be a positive 2x. 2x times x gives you 2x squared. 2x times negative 2 gives you negative 4x. We're always subtracting with long division, and we're going to get a positive 4x. Drop down your next term and repeat. X times what gives you 4x? That would be a 4. Multiply back. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. We subtract for long division, and we're going to get a positive 13. This is your remainder, don't forget. We write our polynomial, x squared plus 2x plus 4 plus your remainder over what you divided by, x minus 2. That is your answer. And that is polynomial long division. Continue watching the next video. This is part 1. Part 2 will be on the rest of the section 4 and synthetic division and remainder theorem.